hot spring. I might ask, have any been on this mud pot before, this rock, except John? Yeah, he doesn't count. He's here every summer. That's a sea bass. Who reads these things? You leave it there long enough. Oh, that got hot. Yeah, there it's good. I didn't leave it in long enough. That seam was getting to me. One little mark above 200, which makes it right at 202 degrees. Look.
That's a jawbone.
You can see the different bones. Look at this here.
This 24-year-old young fellow jumped in the wrong pool.
Oh.
So you got a pool here that's 90 degrees, and right next door one that's 180. And you get a few beers in you, and which pool do you jump in? You see, that's the whole problem. That's the reason it's unlawful to go. That's one of the reasons. So we had a young 9-year-old boy fall in a pool at Old Faithful area in 1970, encrusted pool right there by Castle Geyser. So, you know, we have had our problems, and I tell you that just because I don't want to be gross about it, but I just want you to know that it does happen. We probably lose as many people as we do animals. When you consider all the animals in all the pools, we don't lose very many animals in our hot springs. Now, the mud appears to be boiling, but as I've taken the temperature here many times, it's about 185 degrees. So it's not really at the boiling point. The boiling effect, of course, is from the gases that come up out of there. There's a lot of carbon dioxide, some carbon monoxide, and of course the one you smell, hydrogen sulfide, a rotten egg gas. Now, there's just a little of that. Your nose is so sensitive. Trying to get out of the snow, the coyotes have dragged him down to here, but this was a calf that was born the summer before, lived all that summer, got through the winter, and probably died this spring. And of course, they don't take long to get cleaned out. Here's its little jaw, so you can see from the jawbone it is a tiny one. Well, it's just probably less than a year old. Smoke was around, didn't seem to bother me.
Ooh, wow. Wow.
That looks nice.
Okay, yeah, we give names to these features out here. We take that liberty, and this man named this already. What would you call this? Baby bathtub.
Oh, okay.
It's a little too hot for bath water, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know that it's cooler than 167 because we got some pretty good algae growth in it, so probably right near 140. And get water on there. Okay, 144. So it's a little too hot. That's about the temperature you'd have if you ran hot water right out of your spigot at home. You have your water heater set for 130, 140 degrees.
Wow.
Hotter than 170 because we got no algae growing, right? And you see evidence where this overflowed before around the edges there? Sure, it flowed out in here. See the little trough it made over there? Where's it going now? It's going under the rock and coming out over here, I'm sure. That's part of it right there. This has had a lot of vandalism. Rick Hutchinson and I cleaned this out probably 15 years ago. Came out with special equipment, lifted about 4 wheelbarrows full of stuff out of that and wheeled it over and dumped it over here. Oh, there's another dead buffalo. See right here?
There's also an inactive mud pump.
Yeah, this is trying to be a mud pot. Can't quite make it. Got a little bit too much water right now. And back in a week, maybe that water table will drop. This is called a woolly daisy. Don't pick the flowers, but pull off a leaf. And get a good close look at the leaf on this little plant. Thick and fleshy, able to hold on to the moisture. It's like a desert plant growing out here. And they'll finally get encroaching out here and fill this in again. About that time something will happen and the spring will start to flow and drown the flowers. They have a terrible time trying to live out in the Geyser Basin, they really do. these things will burn very well. So you can gather those up and build your fire tonight if you want. These are awfully small elk droppings, really. Elk droppings get as big as the end of your thumb. They get a good size elk. Make good beads, get them good and dry and thread them on and make a string of beads. I don't mind pulling these off. This is clover, it doesn't belong here. The only reason we got clover in Yellowstone is because it was brought in with the horses in the early days, and so either with the hay or with the animal dropping itself. But we got a bunch of clover in this area. The little white flower you see here is called western yarrow. Don't pick the flower again, but find a western yarrow plant and pull off a leaf. I'd like you to get a leaf like that, some of you, if you're interested. And even some out here without flowers on it. Mash that in your fingers now. Mash it up pretty good and smell it.
Yarrow?
And that's the western yarrow, yeah. And it smells like, to me, camphor a little bit. Got some medicinal smell to it. We're told the Indians would get this when it's fresh like that, grind it up like that, and put it on a canker sore or something in their mouth. It would heal that right up. They also would make a poultice out of it for an injury. It'd stop the bleeding. If you get this stuff dry, you can cook it and make a yarrow tea. And the yarrow tea acts as a mild laxative, so it's got some medicinal purposes to it. The little blue flower that hangs over is called a harebell, H-A-R-E, harebell.
Those aren't the ones that are...
Okay, that's what I'm looking for, yeah. That's called wild flax. And they'll follow the sun. And this afternoon, the sun sets, the petals will fall off, and tomorrow another one will open up. And usually just one on a stem at a time is in blossom. And then it falls off and the next one blooms. They got a very tough stem to them. We told the Indians would actually tie that together and make kind of a string out of it when they needed it. Also called Everett thistle. Now these will get to be quite tall if you give them a chance. The elk nibble on these, and I think that's why they call them elk thistle. They'll get out here and nibble that blossom right off. We can see an overhang there, folks, with a big hole back under there where hot water's coming in. Likewise, you can see over here that this whole area is a ledge. So we don't want to get out on those ledges. Now, you maybe want to come down this way a little more so you can see into the pool. And again, it's hot down in that corner. It comes in a pool, flows this way, starts to cool, and get yellow algae right up that little hill right there. Now, I hope you can all see the bones in the bottom. There's even a bone here that's been broken in half. And a whole bunch of bones in here over the years. I've seen 2 different times when elk have fallen in here. Probably 15 years ago and again about 7 or 8 years ago. Both of them cow elk, and I suspect that they fell in the spring, probably feeding on the grass along the edge here, decided to go to the other side. In both cases they died right here. So I think they just stepped into this stuff, and again, not much feeling on their hoofs until they get down there and start to sink in, then it gets hot on their leg. By that time they got all 4 legs in there and they start in this mud. Remember how soft that is. The more they struggle, the more they sink. And now they're panicking because they're getting their legs burned. They're getting exhausted in a hurry from the struggle. They're probably already weak from a hard winter anyway. And just fall over exhausted and die right there in that hot. This is a young elk. Tell it's a young elk from the size of its jawbone again, a small shoulder blade. Young elk. White light that enters that water is all the colors of the rainbow. And all the colors are absorbed except blue, and that's reflected back to your eye. And it appears very dark blue in the bottom because light's passing through more water, so it gets darker as it gets deeper. I would say this is probably close to 25 feet deep out there in that center part, just from the color of the water, from experience of measuring depths of pools in the past. One day, a gentleman was out here from, where's he from? Corning Glassware, and he was doing research on this pool, and I tried to get out of him why is Corning Glassware interested in a hot pool in Yellowstone, and he gave me a big long scientific explanation that went right over my head. I couldn't understand it, big words and all, and he said he didn't really care, he was having a ball out here, so as long as Corning was paying the bill, he was willing to be here. But he did have a pretty sophisticated pH meter, and so with electrodes and the whole bit, so he just put the thing in there, and it's just almost neutral water. 7.2, something like that. It was thus almost pure neutral. So I don't know what causes the spines. Anyway, they're there, and they of course get washed off out here when they're weathered. They're so delicate they'll get washed right off. You see, it's too hot for algae. Too hot for algae. You get algae down here where it gets a little cooler back off. But, hey, that's hot right there, and there's no way algae will grow. But that, you see, that's a different color. That's yellowish white. Sure. And it is legal. You can't swim in any of the hot springs or dive in any, and generally because they're too hot, really. But this is about 75 degrees out here, so once you get in, you get used to it. You're over your head out there. These kids will get down into that water. It's about 75 degrees, and that's interesting too because Buffalo Faith was about 50 degrees by the time we get down here. That's the point we measured it at, and it's about 75 degrees. 25 degrees in 8 months with all the hot water dumping in. And of course, on a cold day, you can see a little steam coming up in the river. So if you're out here waiting, these kids soon learn that they wear shoes when they go in that river. But there are hot spots you can step on, as well as sharp water. Hot springs right in the bottom. Okay, we'll stay right on the trail now. Here, don't step where you don't see me step. We'll be all right. You can see what I'm talking about. These are spots you wouldn't want to step into. If you're just one or two, you can easily get behind a tree and protect yourself from a guy like that. But with a group of 30 folks, why, we're pretty vulnerable stretched out like that. So that's really nice. Now you watch John, he's back there checking out that geyser. He's never seen that. We got a little geyser there that erupts 2 or 3 times a day, and he's into geysers, so he wanted to find that one. A week ago, this whole thing was just dry, and all you could hear is hissing, the steam coming out because there wasn't enough water to make. Mud pots are in pretty good shape this morning, especially because it's late into July. These rocks are part of the story of Pocket Basin. Notice that they're and fractured pieces like that, and they're all over. Hey. Very rarely they'll lay their head right down on the ground like a horse will and have a little nap. They can't stay there much longer than about 15 or 20 minutes. Their lungs start to fill up with water and they actually die from pneumonia if they leave their head down flat on the ground too long. So you'll see them usually in that position. But that poor guy was out flat, head right down on the ground, and I know that's part of his problem too. But just indicate that just something as insignificant as that can cause a buffalo a lot of stress. These things too. Probably laid down here because it's nice and warm and just being weakened, couldn't get up. A young bull, probably a couple of years old, it's got antlers here. It never even took time to get the velvet all rubbed off. Normally the velvet will aid the growth of those things, and then in the late summer they'll start to rub those antlers and clean them off because that's the rutting season. This guy was too young to really know what life was all about yet as far as rutting season was concerned, so he didn't even bother to clean the stuff off his antlers. Notice they don't have any teeth right in here, except for one. They got grinding teeth back here, they got incisors on the bottom, and no teeth on top. So when they bite grass, they don't bite it off, they pinch it off. They'll get those teeth against that hard gum and they pull it. So they're very noisy when they're eating. You can hear that grass snapping off as they pull it off, but they don't really chop it off. Just a hard old gum up there like some guy with no teeth on top. This little tooth, there's one on either side on the top, and it's the remnant of what once was in evolution probably a canine tooth. like coyotes and tigers and so forth have those sharp meat-tearing teeth. And this didn't serve any purpose because this is a vegetarian, so over the years of evolution, this thing's rounded off. We call this the ivory. There's one on either side, and it's a wonder that's still here because a lot of folks come along and pull those out of these dead animals. They will polish up and make pretty ornaments. The Indians would use those to decorate their clothes with, and members of the elk club today like those little teeth for a watch fob or something. They will polish up pretty nice. You can see what happens when an animal dies. The scavengers come in and they hardly ever rip the rib cage open. They just go right in there and they like the entrails first, especially a grizzly bear. He likes the entrails, and then the coyotes will feed on the flesh. But you can see how they just really peel most of the flesh off of that thing now. Probably coyotes. Grizzly bears, usually they'll bite, and they got such strong teeth when they bite a bone like that, they just crunch it right in half. Coyotes can't do that. They just kind of scrape at them, but a grizzly bear gets a hold of a leg bone that big around, just one bite and it breaks right in half. They're tough old critters.
Did this one die probably because weakened from the winter?
Yeah,
or ill?
yeah. Most of the animals you see out here died from winter kill. Just the weaker ones that didn't make it through that hard winter. They get to a lot of time to get into spring in April, and things are going pretty good. The grasses are coming up and the snow's melted, and then all of a sudden you get one of those big old heavy spring storms that'll dump 2 feet of snow, and these guys are just so weak they can't plow through 2 feet of snow again. They just give up. Buffalo's up back here now. I don't know if that's a different one, maybe. Probably a different one.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's probably a different buffalo than we've seen this morning. The cows are busy taking care of the calves. The calves are born along in April, May, and June. That pool right there, early in June, was bubbling mud. See the water table, mud pots are out here on a hill. You don't find mud pots up on top of a hill. Because that's the mud in this corner, this is wall. This looks like a pot of oatmeal on the stove. You hear that steam vent? See, there's a lot of water going to waste back there. It's not thin enough mud to capture that. This will stay liquid all summer because, yeah, it does. I've never seen this one dry up. It's thicker, but it's still kind of a natural drainage here. A lot of water will flow in here. Even what little rain we get, maybe will keep this thing going. One of our naturalists, Jeremy Schmidt, decided to spend the winter here. He was a seasonal naturalist, same as I am, and decided, well, he didn't have anything better to do that winter. He would stay in the park, and so he hired on after his tour with the Park Service. He hired on with the concessioner to be the winter keeper at the inn. And his job there was to shovel the snow off the roof and keep it from collapsing through the hard winter. Well, he had a lot of free time, and so he snow skied, cross-country skied out here. And I think it was 1976, the spring of '76, that he was out here along in January, February, and saw a buffalo in here, just the back part. Now this gets a lot wetter with snow and rain on it, and so it does become liquid and actually bubbles similar to the one back here. Not as liquid, not as thin, thicker mud, but still here. And we suspect that old buffalo was probably just lying down here next to this mud pot and went to stand up. And of course they raise up on their front feet and then they try to get those back legs up, and probably got one leg down in there, and they're very awkward. He just had a heck of a time getting out of there and probably just exhausted and rolled right into it. Long since dead when Jeremy got here. Well, I came in late May that year, and there were grizzly tracks all around this mud pot. And there were knife-like slashes all through the mud. Now the critter probably sank out of sight after Jeremy saw it, but still was in here cooking. And I'm not sure, but this green stuff appeared for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I didn't see it until this year. I came out here in June, and it was just white like all the rest of the mud. A week later I came back and it's green like this. This is the third week in here now with the green. That smell, I wonder if we didn't lose an elk or something in here again. You know, a possibility. It smells like it's got a smell to it that's different, doesn't it? It's one you don't like, and I think that's the way it is with decaying flesh. Anyway, that grizzly had been out here, and he had smelled and he had scraped his hands back and forth trying to find that. They got big long claws, 4 or 5 inch claws on their front feet for digging. And here, these slash marks all through where you've been trying to find some of that cooked buffalo. These tracks, some of them I put my hand and a half in one track in the back leg, so they're big. Now, here's John. Where's John?
Here I am.
Let me borrow your stick a minute, would you?
Sure.
If you look right out here, I think that's a grizzly track and one there. Now you come look, and you got to get on this angle, but I see claw marks, I see a footprint, I see one there. I think right over there is another one. I think that guy stepped right across there.
And didn't go in.
And didn't go in. Now you figure that one out, but look at those marks. Start down the side of that baby, there's no stopping, huh? Again, about 185 degrees, so not quite boiling, but lots of gas is being trapped in that sticky mud.
What gas is it, Sam?
Carbon dioxide, basically. Tell me a little carbon monoxide. Of course, that one you like to smell, hydrogen sulfide. I'm standing here, oh gee, it must have been 1979, 1980. Had a group about this size here at that time, and we were looking around, and I was talking to them. We looked down, and there were 9 buffalo lying down out here in these down trees. And that reminded me of another thing. All these trees that are down died for a couple of reasons. Maybe the ground got hot there for a time and killed them. Secondly, they are lodgepole and they don't have a deep taproot at all. There's no taproot to them. So the roots are very shallow. You get a windstorm and it blows them over very easily. And there's a lot of trees down. You've seen that all in the walk. So maybe just blow down, maybe hot ground killed them, I don't know. Anyway, a lot of dead trees out here, and there are 9 buffalo lying down. Well, I said, let's leave that last mud pot to the buffalo. We'll walk around the edge here. So here we go, single file, 30 folks walking around the edge of the basin right here, keeping an eye on those critters. Well, pretty soon they started to stand up, and they kept looking at us. I kept an eye on them, and finally they started swinging their big old head back and forth, and I said, we better find some trees to get behind. Well, there's not a lot of trees out there. So we found a couple of clumps of trees to get behind. And then they started pawing the ground with their front feet. I knew we were in trouble. They started to run. When one runs, they all do. So single file right up toward us. And they really didn't want us, I don't think. They just wanted out of there. They felt like they were being surrounded. So they just came right between us. We could have swatted them on the rump when they went by. They were that close. 9 of them. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Right out of there. So I've learned to respect buffalo, and that's the reason we didn't get too close to that guy that was lying down over there this morning. We kind of, when we're stretched out like we are here, we kind of get around it. Well, you notice that all the mud we've been seeing is kind of this dull gray color. As we look ahead down through the valley, there's a lot of red on the surface, and that's probably some iron oxide. So we go down and look at another mud area here, and it's got some red mud. Iron oxide on the surface. Have this colored mud up there by the area called fountain paint pots. Park your car and walk around the boardwalk. That does stay a lot more liquid than we have here. You folks might have seen it on reruns or whatever, called a cub in Yellowstone. 2 little cubs that got in trouble in the inn and got in a flour barrel, and then they're out in the campground and they pull the rock out behind the trailer tire, and the trailer goes crashing down through the campground. Showed one of them on a mud pot. Now the mud pot was fake in the movie because I'm not going to sit out here on a mud pot and have this stuff looping on your nose. But they went through about 3 different cubs, 3 different years trying to get that movie made. But the cubs would keep growing up. Yeah. Well, anyway, Walt Disney's crew came out here in this area and taped the sounds. So the sounds are authentic on there on the mud pots, but the mud pot itself is a fake.
Sam, does this mud fall in?
Yeah,
and start over again?
Exactly right. It'll just keep throwing out, then a big chunk, and you'll stand here in a rainstorm and you'll just see a big chunk just plop right in there. just keeps building up, and then it collapses and builds up. And over the 20 plus years I've been coming in here, I don't see much change in the size of any of them. Well, you know, it is warm. It might be good for your complexion. I don't know.
I want to get a picture, man.
The only thing I worry about, it is a little bit acid, and I'm not sure that that's good. Yeah. Well, let's say one big old last mud pot here.
Yeah, and it's all like shaped until it bubbles, and then it changes shape. That's neat. That's why I wanted to show you that. Then you could think.
Well, I didn't see her do it. George Aldard was telling me about it, and she just brought little vessels in, you know, and put some samples of mud in each one of them, and took it home and I guess shaped it into something and tried firing it.
There's no crystalline silicon dioxide texture in it at all.
No, it doesn't feel abrasive at all, does it? I hope you understand hydrothermal explosion a little bit now, and relate to that the nature, the forces in nature. This is probably Pocket Basin, one of the largest thermally or hydrothermal explosion craters they found. There's probably a dozen of them in the park, and they're all smaller. I showed you Twin Buttes earlier this morning. There's one right between the two little hills up there. It blew out, and now it's full of water and had lily pads growing in it, and kind of a neat little area. They found explosion craters like this, hydrothermal craters, even on the islands of Iwo Jima. So they are around. I think somebody said Lake City, California, or Lake City, Florida. I don't know. Anyway, Lake City somewhere here in the United States they even found one. So it is kind of an unusual phenomenon, but the mud pots and the hot springs and the geysers you're not going to find anywhere else in the world like you find in Yellowstone. So I hope you've learned a few things today that'll help you to self-interpret as you walk through Yellowstone, and I hope I've encouraged you to take walks with other rangers, because there are lots of other walks unlike the thermal walk, but to walk around and learn about the ecology of the lake, and learn about the geology of Yellowstone Canyon, and the history of the Park Service up there at Mammoth. Just a lot of fun things to learn about here in Yellowstone. And I appreciate the fact you've gone this morning. I realize that when you give up 2.5 hours of your time, it's pretty precious vacation time, and I realize a sense of responsibility there to make it worthwhile. I hope you found it that way this morning.
Yep.
So our cars are right there, and you can just